Hello, everyone. Welcome back from lunch. Everybody have a good lunch? All right, I don't want anybody falling asleep now, okay? I know how it gets after lunch in these long conferences. We've got a special treat for you today. We have a brilliant man here with us. He is the founder and CEO of Feedvisor. I'm sure many of you are familiar with their business. Victor Rosenman is going to join us, and he's going to talk to us a little bit about how he came up with this brilliant idea. But one of the things that they're experts at is machine learning, and that's a big buzzword at Amazon, obviously, right now, and he's been doing this since 2011. So big data, machine learning, this is really important stuff, and we're super excited to have Victor on stage with us here. So welcome, Victor.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I hope I would not bore you with machine learning after lunch. It's very special dessert. So, okay, my name is Victor Rosenman. I'm CEO and founder of Feedvisor. Feedvisor is an algo commerce company. We enable various retailers on Amazon to optimize their business so they can increase their profits, they can increase their sales, and actually do versus what they have been doing before. So before diving into what really machine learning and artificial intelligence means on the marketplaces like Amazon, I want to start a little bit before and explain what's the background, what's really happening in the industry and what leads to Feedvisor. So I don't think it's a secret to anyone that the classic retail is in trouble, and especially not to those who are Amazon employees here. But basically, if we walk into any type of typical retail store, and we just forget about which year we are, and you will ask yourself which year it is now, and if you don't look at the brands, you probably wouldn't be able to tell, or the accuracy will be plus minus 10 years at best. So what really happens is the consumers are, in a sense, fed up with the experience. They want something new, they want to change. And this is pretty much reflected in the way that the industry is today. So, and when we look at the industry as of today, the most known phenomenon is the fact that the offline retail stores are closing. And they're closing at an accelerated rate. I don't have a slide with me, but I read an interesting research recently that comparing the number of retail store closing this year versus 2008, and actually this year was larger. And we're not really in that level of crisis of the economy as it's 2008. So, so clearly there is a move from more of kind of classic retail environment where there is some sort of seasonality, there is sometimes more closing, there is sometimes more openings, toward clear trend. And the clear trend shows downward for the retail and upward for the online retail. And when we look into this world of the online retail, we see that how it's actually built. It's built of 55% today represented by the online stores, the branded sites, and about 45% represented by marketplaces. And this is the US breakdown. In Europe, you would see that there will be more of the branded stores and less of the marketplaces. But if you look into Asia, into China, for example, to be 90% marketplaces, and 10% only will be the classical branded stores. And in my opinion, at least, and I think this is where the world is going, China represents the future for us and not an exclusion of the rule. So if we look into the marketplaces, which is the growing force, we'll see that the marketplaces pretty much dominated by Amazon. And we can see it through these numbers, which are really amazing. We can see that, first of all, Prime is the driving force, and Prime represents today over half of the US population that is Prime members. At the same time, we see that the growth of the e-commerce is not. Oh, it doesn't work. The growth of the e-commerce is not equally distributed. It's actually over half of the nominal growth comes to Amazon. So Amazon grows way, way, way faster. Basically, I don't know if you know, but the difference in rates of growth between Amazon and the other kind of branded stores is 10x. So it's 5-6% versus 45%. So that's a huge difference. And it's the same happens with the retail growth at the pace of economy, which is quite natural. But at the same time, it's growth less than 15 times versus Amazon. So Amazon is a super interesting marketplace. And this growth also comes in realization in the stock performance of Amazon. So I'm not going to stop here, but it's a well-known fact. Amazon grew much faster. But when you look at the numbers, you really see it. So let's focus on Amazon Marketplace. Amazon Marketplace today, there are two parts of it. So there is a first party, it's a vendor marketplace, and I'll talk about this a little bit more in detail. And there is a third party marketplace where sellers actually sell as a sellers of record. So the interesting thing here is that third-party marketplace today is bigger than the first-party one. And then the growth rate of the marketplace is actually double the growth rate of the first party. So who basically sells on Amazon? There are 2 million sellers on Amazon, pretty much. And out of these 2 million sellers, it's about 100K of sellers that sell over $100,000 a year, which is really nothing because it's like $10,000 a month. It's virtually nothing. So what we're seeing that the marketplace is really concentrated, really concentrated. So we have about, when we go down to say how many sell not 100K a year, but let's say a million a year. So that numbers go down 10x. So it's about 20,000, not 10, 5x. About 20,000 or so sellers on Amazon that sell over 1 million. And this number, again, significantly goes down when we ask who sells more than 1 million a month, which is like 10, 12 million a year. And these numbers just gets to a couple thousand. So this is how the marketplace feels. The marketplace is not a purely kind of equal market of millions of sellers. It's actually a playground of a relatively handful, maybe a few thousand of professional large sellers that pretty much control everything. So this is these people and Amazon. And this is something that people don't know. They feel it's like it's millions and millions of sellers, and it's not the case. So let's look into those people who sell on Amazon. So first one, the laser is back, so it's a good news. So the first one are the retailers. The retailers are those that basically sell the same products as other people. The best example would be sellers of a mobile phone. So these people will sell the same mobile phone, they will source it, they will compete on the very same listing, but they will have different offers. And the question is, how do they get the different pricing? They get the different pricing, different cost structure because they can get a better deal. Some of them can buy in a higher volume. And that's one of the reasons why there is an inequality between sellers. Because those that can have economy of scale and can achieve much better deals, those are naturally more successful and growing rather than those that can't get to this level. So that's the retailers. They represent between 80 to 90% of all the transactions on Amazon. All the GMV that happens over there happens here. In the retail space, they all compete for buy box, and they're just driving volume. Then there are two other groups. One of them is private labelers, and the other ones are more like a brands starting to sell on Amazon. The last one is the rising star. There's very few really established brands that sell direct on Amazon. through the 3P, but that's a growing trend. At the same time, there is quite a large number of private label businesses that get their products as a private label. They'll sell it on Amazon. But these private label customers, they tend to be not as large as either retailers or brands. And then there is another group, which are the brands that sell through Amazon as a vendor, through Vendor Central or Vendor Express as a first party. This is the probably the largest group in the GMV. So we talked about 90 billion or so that Amazon reports. That's mainly comes from here, from this group. And the last one are Amazon Basics. It's a rising star, as you all know. It's a private label by Amazon. Good. So we talk about two categories, first party versus third party. And what's the difference? Why someone will decide to sell on first party versus selling on third party? The main difference is very simple. It goes complexity for margin. So if you are willing to be open to take more complexity upon yourself, you will manage your own pricing, you will manage your own inventory velocity, you will manage ability to source and kind of carefully plan the products, then you should go for the third party. And then you will be having much larger margin. And then if you decide to actually forego the whole complexity, get to the world that is simpler, you just supplying the orders that Amazon sends to you, then you basically be going to the first party. You'll be fine by a very high margin that the first party will require you to pay. But again, it's a margin versus complexity. So what this complexity really means? The complexity comes down to three things. First, you need to generate the demand. Second, you need to be able to convert the demand. And it's typically done through dynamic pricing. I'm going to talk more about this. And the third one is how you can balance between demand and the supply constraints. Because in most of the cases, you don't have infinite supply of products. You have certain constraints in your time to supply products, and you have certain constraints in your ability, how many items you can include in a certain bulk. So because the supply is not infinite, you need to take it into consideration when planning for demand and demand conversion. So let's look into each of those in depth. So first one is about demand. And the best way to explain what really happens on the demand is to compare Amazon and Google. So Google is more known. Amazon advertising exists for a limited period of time, sponsored products, AMS on if you're doing first party. So there are a lot of similarity between Google and Amazon, but there is one clear difference. Google is all about content. And then when you're managing this content, you can think of going to Google and searching for something, and then you're getting a product page. You can get an article that explains something about product, a review site, a Wikipedia article. There's a lot of content. So the main thing that Google will look at is the ability for site to have a content that is relevant to the search and is defined by the quality score. Of those of you who've done the PPC or advertising, you know it. What happens on Amazon is that all pages, all the destination sites, destination pages, are exactly the same. Exactly the same. They're all product pages. So the actual quality of content that you need to have in order to have a relevant result is not as significant. What is significant is if you're getting to a certain page, you need to make sure that you're being converted. You actually get to the product page and you buy a particular product. If that happens, that means that the page has been relevant. If it doesn't happen, that means the page is not relevant. And this is where the complexity starts, because then when we look into conversion, we're thinking about things like it's not only the bid price, but it also what the product prices are, what's the seller ratings, what's the reviews. When people compete for the buy box, it's basically price versus the reputation of a seller. When when the different product listings compete with one another, it's actually the product reputation versus product reputation of other products. It's a seller reputation versus reputation of other sellers, and then price. So this is a triangle, and it's a little bit more complex. And then when you're building your advertising strategy, you need to take this into account. And then I don't think it will take long until the conversion rate from a visitor to deal or to the purchase on a given product page will act by Amazon as a quality score. So if you, for example, send traffic to a product listing that doesn't convert, that the pricing is not right, the description is not exactly right, you're going to be fine. You're going to pay a hell lot more on a given bid for that particular product. And that's going to happen. It's just a question of time. So when you think about your advertising strategy, you need to think very well about this. So when we talk about the conversion, there are a couple things that influence the conversion, but what influences the conversion most is the dynamic pricing. How are you priced versus others? So if you compete for the buy box, you need to think how your price and reputation scores against the price and reputation of other sellers of the very same product. If you compete between different products, you need to think how your price, reputation, the reputation of your product scores against price, reputation, and the reputation of seller of the other product. That's going to be critical. And this is why dynamic pricing is the tool that enables you in the shortest period of time to influence the conversion rates. Because if you think about this, definitely reputation is something that plays a critical role, but it takes time to change the reputation. You need to get the reviews. You need to get change in your reviews rate. So it will take a lot of time. Price lever is immediate impact. And that's why we at FeedVisor, for example, we started with pricing. We understood that pricing is really so key, so centric to the whole experience of the marketplace, that is everything else is pretty much supplementary. So when you think about pricing in the marketplace environment, it's very different from the pricing in retail. Pricing in retail is you're getting a certain price, usually manufacturer recommended price, MAP, and then you apply discounts. And then when you get to supermarket, it says the price is this, but you get 20 to 30% or whatever discount. In marketplaces, it doesn't work this way. In marketplace, the price is the actual price change. So you see the price, the promotion doesn't play that important role as it would play in more kind of classical retail or even on the branded sites. So it's the actual price that matters. And then when a consumer gets to a product page, they look for the actual price. They compare actual price of this listing versus actual price of some other product. That's how it works. And it's really closer to the stock market than it is to classical retail. And then once you figure out how to do the demand part, once you have figured out how to convert through dynamic pricing, then it comes how you really create a balancing act between the supply constraints I talked before and the demand. And this is where the time to replenish, the availability of inventory, start to play into it. And then when you think about this in depth, you would understand that if you have a limited amount of inventory and relatively long time to replenish, then you shouldn't be really pressing on gas and spending more and more on advertising and lowering your prices. You should act differently. And it changes if you have a large amount of items that you need to sell. So you need always to find that balance point. And this balance point needs to be figured out in the actual real-time scenario. So the actual balance point is different between today and tomorrow and then 5 minutes from now. It all changes, and it needs to be recalculated. And this is where it's so hard to manage this in the environments that are such algorithmic and complex by using the approaches of more of the manual nature. So where you're going at the evening, you look through the things, you think how much did you spend on advertising, how much, what's your price versus was before, what should I do? It's too late. It's really too late. It's like doing today manual stock trading when there is all the algo trading goes on behind the scene. So to conclude what we talked about is Amazon today is the only highly algorithmic marketplace. It learns from anything. It learns from all the actions that you take. It learns from how people act. It learns from everything that's happening out there. And the question is to you is how you can be successful in operating in such smart algorithmic environment. And the answer basically is you need to act in the same way. So you cannot come into the kind of algorithmic marketplace with a toolkit that is basically a toolkit that worked in the classical retail. I happened to speak with a couple brands recently, and they said, oh, we only update prices once in a day. You missed the train. I mean, they update price once in a day. Someone else will update price in another 10 minutes, or 5 minutes, or 3 minutes, and the rest 24 hours, they're just wasting the sale. Because they have better structure, they have better margin, but they're just missing everything by not being able to act fast and smart and in the right way. And this is an article that was published about 18 months ago or so, which basically says, and it was extremely amazing to me to actually read it, because it was saying exactly the same thing that I always believed. And that today the proprietary algorithms that rely on data, these are the ones that basically control our experience. This is the one that creates the competitive edge. It's not anymore the operational part, because everyone can operate with the same software at the same time of best practices. It's no longer even the data itself, because data itself is pretty much common and everyone collects the same data. But it's really the algorithms that run on top of the data that creates your unique algorithmic experience and your unique competitive edge versus everyone else. Being able to analyze the data, being able to make the decisions fast, and being able to act precisely and in timely manner. And what it means to have the algorithms. It basically means very few things, because if you look through various types of advertising and you would see, okay, this algorithmic technology, that algorithmic technology, how you can tell if it's really algorithmic technology or just someone telling you the stories. So it usually have three components to it. The first one, it needs to be relying on machine learning. So if you see some sort of kind of rule-based technology, you need to tell the system, if something happens, do that, or if something happens, do this. It's not algorithmic. It's you who creating the algorithm, but then again, it will not be precise. It will be very much lagging in terms of the intelligence. Second thing, it needs to be iterative. So it needs to learn from every iteration. And it needs to be self-adjusting. So it needs to learn, and it needs to adjust itself, and it needs to act better in the next time. So once you have all these three things at once, you have really artificial intelligence system, and this system can outperform everyone else. And this is how we at FeedVisor see how the artificial intelligence can be applied to your business. It starts with the fact that we collect the inputs. So we collect the inputs from market, we collect the inputs from competition, from demand, from pricing. Everything comes together in form of one large big data repository. Then you run algorithms on that, and the algorithms produce the insights from this data. So the data itself is raw data. It can be data of orders, it can be data of prices, it can be data on market. But the insights are very concrete. And this translation from the data to insight is where the algorithm belongs to. Being able to set what's the right price to be set now, what's the right velocity, what's the right spend on the advertising, how it all need to work for me given my environment. That's the insight. and instantly lead to decision. The decision can be, okay, I want to set this price and send it to the marketplace. I want to change my bid from A to B. I want to discontinue selling this product, or maybe my velocity is too high. All these decisions are the decisions you make. Some of them are strategic decisions, let's say replenishment decisions. Maybe you're sourcing your products at a too high of a price because your competition can do lower. How you can know this? You can understand your buy box shares, and you can understand where you are, and based on that, you can understand where you stand competitively. We saw with our customers that we provided them report of the buy box distribution and how did they score against the competition, and they figured out immediately that they're being screwed on price. So they can go and renegotiate. So this is strategic decisions. There are sometimes tactical decisions, and this is mainly pricing or advertising decisions. So to sum it up, I try to explain the complexity of the marketplace. And then I will tell a few words about what we do at FeedVisor. So what FeedVisor does is we collect all this information I talked about. We collect the data about your cost structure. We collect the data about orders. We collect the market data. We listen to 1 million products. We manage over 2 billion worth of GMV in annual terms. And then all this data being collected together, being analyzed continuously by our servers, and then we help you to determine what's the right action you should take. So we have a team of strategic account managers that help you to make the right decision, that will sit with you on either monthly or quarterly basis to help you understand, are you really competitive? Do you really get the right prices? Are you sourcing the right products? Are you taking the right strategy? And we also have the algorithm that manage your pricing in real time. So combining these two tools is what we're trying to do to increase your competitive edge in the marketplace, so you can act algorithmically rather than being driven by either guesswork or some sort of manual rule programming. And what we have seen, and this is all the case studies you can find on our site, what we have seen is our customers consistently outperform the market. And we've done extensive study of comparing us versus various growth rates that are being published by other vendors. And we saw that our customers outperform between 20 to 30% in terms of growth rates versus everyone else. So that's all about us, FeedVisor, the marketplace, the algorithms. Thank you very much.